Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CTN webinar. Our topic for today is enabling an efficient and resilient business of IT. And we are going to be talking about some fun stuff here with respect to how organizations are trying to use IT for the benefit of the business, make the business move forward. But if the IT is not efficient, that means there could be a leakage in terms of revenue. If you are not doing things for resilience, then if there's a delay or an outage and you don't bounce back, you lose revenue and reputation given where we are. So the topic here is such that we look at what do you understand about the customers? Who are the customers, like internal and external, who you're serving? Then you are also looking at the metrics and the benchmarks we should follow for efficiency and resilience, because what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. Then, which we're talking about the tasks and the processes one should improve and or rethink for you to be able to look at the efficiency and resilience totally differently. And the finally is the security and the smoothness of the operation and the compliance. We cannot get away from doing so. So to discuss this, I have with me Rowena Yeo, Chief Technology Officer, Johnson & Johnson. Hey, Rowena, how are you?
Hey, Sanjog, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Very good to have you. And Rajeev Ravindran he's the Chief Information Officer for Ryder. Hey, Rajeev, how's life?
Young, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. And we have Suma Nallapati, Chief Digital Officer with Everbridge. Hey, Suma.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on this panel.
Absolutely. And Aref Matin, my dear friend, Chief Technology Officer with Wiley. Hey, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Sayu. Again, great to be on this panel.
All right, good. So yeah, we will start this with like a workshop format where we'll go through the challenges from all parties involved, and also we will then look at the solutions that these leaders are facing, and even we will be involving our attendees as well. But before we get started, we are close to holiday season, and we know we all like sweets. So I wanted to ask you, how many of you like pastries? Right? Right? Okay, I have one person raising hand at the pastries. Okay, so the reason I bring this pastries part up is because if you look at the type of ingredients you need in a pastry, what do you need? You need patience and attention to detail. Yeah, I mean, while I need flour and sugar and everything else. And if you had to figure out how to build efficiency and resilience in IT, guess what? You need almost like that. So what we have is actually, you are all pastry chefs for me who have the attention to detail and the patience to be able to do this. Now, what should we do on this forum? We should get started with the top challenges each of the leaders are facing. And then we should also listen to how they're trying to solve the problem. So, Rowena, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
And 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. And then just share a little background, the context, and the top challenge you're facing, which is preventing you from building efficiency and resilience for IT.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjog. And first of all, I'm Rowena Yeo. I'm the Chief Technology Officer, Johnson & Johnson, and I have responsibility for technology services across J&J. And so maybe to answer your question, Sanjog, I'd like to give a little bit of a background around J&J and then how that drives to some of the challenges that I'm seeing today. So as you may know, J&J is the world's largest and most comprehensive healthcare company in the world. And we have across our organization multiple sectors that we support from a technology services perspective. And one of our key goals is about providing access and affordability in terms of healthcare. And our goal is around creating healthier communities and to build a healthy mind, body, and environment within reach of everyone, everywhere. So technology is very integral to the way we are shaping and transforming our company to ensure that we continue to deliver on the most urgent healthcare needs of the society. And it's within that, if you think about kind of what we support from a technology perspective, having to support our pharma business, our medical device business, consumer business, and with that J&J's global footprint. And we also see a huge exponential growth in data, in digital advancements, and innovation, and therefore the need to require technology that's flexible and agile to meet the business needs of all sectors, as well as to ensure that every business is served in terms of the ability to drive business outcomes, to serve our patients and customers across our diverse application, data, platform, and security needs and compliance and regulation rules. And I'm sure many of my as panelists are seeing. So when we look at optimizing our technology operations, one of the challenge I would say amongst many others is around how do we drive an efficient and resilient environment where we are looking at managing this diverse set of applications that we have, and all the way from really diverse set of legacy systems that we have today to modern applications. And again, maintaining different applications with the different age, different legacy architecture to come together. And we are all, I'm sure, very familiar with the dangers and impact that maintaining multiple systems, and for this specific topic, just legacy environment, legacy systems that it presents. So I'm not just talking about simply the life cycle of this application, but really how do we ensure that we are maintaining applications then that are allowing us to be agile. And so many of the issues are around how do we maintain and ensure that these legacy systems, we are operating them in a way whereby we will minimize the challenges of being able to operate in an agile manner. And also, how do we ensure that our organization adopt processes that will allow us to be better at serving our businesses and therefore our customers. And when we think about the customers that we support and we serve, they have an expectation that we are going to be delivering innovative solutions. We're going to be cost optimizing our environment and also drive on time delivery, right, to keep our businesses going. And with the legacy environment that we're seeing increasing, which is operational cost with decreasing systems availability, stability. And we know that the impact of maintaining legacy systems has an impact in terms of how we're providing data, driving our network security, and how do we ensure that we are protecting those areas. So the other part that I'm seeing that's potential challenge for us is around our workforce, because how can we continue to build and develop a workforce for the future? And if we have employees that are manually still maintaining and working on legacy environment, at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide a business environment where our talent can also upskill and develop. So I'm sure this is a business issue that many of my panelists here see. But at Johnson & Johnson, we are on our journey to modernize this, and I can certainly talk more about the progress we are making in this space, Sanjog.
Absolutely. So Rajeev, when you look at your environment, totally different, I'm assuming, from Rowena's environment. What are your top issues while you might have similar initiatives going on, but what holds you back?
So yeah, let me, sort of set the stage about Ryder. So I work for Ryder. I'm the CIO there. Excuse me. So Ryder is nearly a 90-year-old global company. So the main business segments are freight management, supply chain solution, and dedicated transportation. So we have 800 maintenance locations, 290,000 vehicles, 56 million square feet of warehouse space, and over 50,000 customers. And we have nearly 40,000 employees, again, in 4 different countries. So that sort of sets the scale. And while Ryder is, it has one large foot in a lot of the newer technologies. We're in EV, autonomous vehicles. We have Ryder Ventures that's investing in technology. We also, being a 90-year-old company, you can imagine how much legacy we also have. And so my challenges are very similar to Rowena's. It's how do we bring the value that business expects from us? We talked about, what do the business and customers want? So if you look at technology in general, look at technology in your everyday lives. You pick up the phone, it's easy. You do banking with a click. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's prevalent, right? Everything that you do, you have your phone. Now, so the mentality is that when you come to work, even though your system's just much more complicated, they want the same kind of response and same kind of results right away. One example is, we took an application that was taking 40 seconds to return data. We turned it to 1 second, and people were really happy. 6 months later, it went down to 3 seconds, and people are complaining, oh my God, it's 3 seconds, as opposed to what it used to be. So people get used to that. So their expectation is constantly growing. And how do we keep up with that? So the legacy, and Rowena said it, I don't want to repeat everything she said, but it's very true for us too. I think sometimes, even though the legacy systems are not really creating a cost increase for us, it's stopping the business from modernizing and moving even faster. especially with the data. And another big piece, you said one, what's the biggest one? Unfortunately, it depends on the day. It's between security and legacy. So if you look at security, the number of intrusions and the bad actors out there has gone up by 60% since last year. It's a huge drain on resources. It's a huge rate, resource drain. It's a huge cost drain, and it's constantly changing. It's not we can hit a target, because the target is moving constantly too, and we're running after it. So how do we manage that? Now you can tie that into legacy too, because some of the legacy systems we didn't want to touch because they were fine, suddenly has holes in it that we have to fix. And there's zero value to the customer to upgrade those systems to a modern technology. So it's that balance between what's the right thing to do. So that's my challenge.
All right. So Suma, in your world, what do you see happening?
Thank you, Sanjog, for the question, and great inputs already on the challenges. I think we collectively are in the IT family and face very similar challenges, even though our domains are maybe a little bit different. So I'm Suma Nallapati, Chief Digital Officer at Everbridge and Senior Vice President of SaaS Operations. And we are in the business of saving people's lives and helping organizations run faster. We are a 9/11 company, so right after 9/11, there was an immediate need for people to be notified during critical events. And so Everbridge is a critical event management company. If there's a flood, there's a fire, airports, all of the notifications that you get on your phones is powered by Everbridge. And we are a global company, so we help countries and counties and states across the globe be resilient, right, in terms of the business continuity, minimize disruptions to their operations when things are going not so well in terms of the climate around us, in terms of the political issues that are happening, in terms of everything that can go wrong when there's a flood or a fire or a natural disaster, right? So that's the business that we are in. So it's a very challenging environment in that sense because of the kind of events that we faced as an organization for our customers. It's a fast-growing company, and you can imagine the number of events that are happening around us. The nature of that is changing constantly, and our software and our systems and everything have to adapt and adopt to what's going on in our environment from a physical perspective, a digital perspective, and the political perspective, and everything in between. So we do that really well. It's I think one of the challenges for us is the amount of growth that our company is going through. It's on a rapid growth path, and the challenges of being on the scale to enterprise, and how do we scale our systems in terms of the growing security needs and all of that is the biggest challenge. But we have great teams that are coming together to help us with the scale and the growth.
Okay. All right. What do you think is happening in your world? Totally different. Suma, you must be having, you have to be on the edge all the time. So Aref, is your world a little relaxed, more relaxed than Suma's world?
I wish, but that's not the case. So thanks for having me on this panel, Sanjog, and the remainder of the panelists there. Aref Matin, I'm EVP CTO at Wiley. I have been in and around this research and education space for the past 10 years or so. Used to be in the same capacity at Pearson, but actually prior to that, without going into a whole lot of details, I really kind of by training, by academic background, I was really a product builder. And that product building focus, and I'm not sure, maybe I should clarify myself, the product building focus is something that I think is missing in the overall IT industry. And that focus is necessary because the product builders focus on MVPs, important things to customers, the outcomes, right? And if they don't do that, they don't really have products to sell, right? And if we kind of look at the whole of IT inside an enterprise, such as a Wiley, you would kind of basically see that that focus is super important these days. for the advancement of the business. The challenges that I have are very similar to some of the stuff that Rajeev and Rowena spoke about. Rajeev talked about a company that's 90 years old. We easily beat you there, Rajeev, right? 214 years, but who's counting? So the point is that 214 years, you gather quite a bit of legacy in your shop. And we have actually managed to really figure out what our modernization path is. We are on a 7-year program to actually really modernize every aspect of our business and the technology that's supporting it. We are halfway there in that process during my time here, and we've done. If I can just kind of basically mention, we've done an awesome job in kind of basically the product focus for our customers. Our customers are raving about our user experiences that they have with our products and capabilities that they touch every day. And we do a really good job there, where we have actually had many, many challenges in the past were similar to stuff that Rowena was talking about in the back office set of activities and the modernization that needs to take place there. And like I said, I think the technology part of this is actually the easy part of this, right? Because going back to being a product builder, you can kind of basically say, okay, well, what is that product? What's the shape of it? What color is this? And what's the size, right? And you know how to really kind of go building products there. So we figured out actually how you go about doing that and are making good progress on building the product. The thing that is extremely challenging for us, and I think also exasperated by the fact that everybody all of a sudden went to work from home, and also during this pandemic, our company has hired nearly 2,000 or so brand new employees. Is that many of these employees that joined have never seen a Wiley office, or they have not really kind of seen the rest of the colleagues that they're working with in person. And they were not part of the original conversations that we had regarding the modernization agenda and the decisions that were made during that phase there. And the challenge really is having constant communication with these people, and really at points in time, you find yourself really kind of regurgitating history of the projects rather than actually kind of making progress on some of these activities, which is something that I really love to do. But you have to really kind of make sure that you deal with the change management aspects it is, the new people aspects it is, the work from home aspects it is, to kind of ensure that that the requirements of this product that you want to build are fully understood, fully documented, and people know how to deal with this. And at the same time, fly the plane while you're putting the wings on. Continue to be agile and make sure that the challenges that are highlighted do not take away from the agility of the delivery here, right? And so that's kind of basically what we kind of think about a lot and really practice on a daily basis.
Okay. So before we get into the solution section, I would like to have whether the attendees or our panelists, if they were to take a word or a phrase which signifies the challenge, So we've spoken a lot about a lot of different challenges, right? So if I were to start putting phrases and words to them, what signifies the top challenge? So we spoke about what? Legacy, maybe not legacy debt, but legacy application modernization. That is one theme I heard. Then another thing I heard was, Aref, you have an interesting issue where the initiative you started, people join after that. Yeah. So those guys are kind of coming in cold. That is one.
I would call it change management, right? The change management of this modernization activity. It's easy to build a modern capability from an older version. It's very difficult to get people to adopt and use it. right?
Culture,
And
culture
then,
sounds, yeah.
exactly. And the change management is the major challenge because it's involving people. If it was systems, it would be easy to connect them to each other, right?
Right.
Okay. So we will continue our discussion. So anyone from attendees and even from the panelists, if you have a word or a phrase which will allow us to distill the challenges, right? Just put it on chat, so that will just allow us to create an inventory out of this. So now coming to you, Rowena, you spoke about quite a few things, right? Of course, you are a large organization doing a whole lot of things, and you did mention about this legacy modernization. Is this just a project which you keep doing the way you're doing it? It's going to get solved and life is good. You can go to Hawaii, or is it going to be something new, unique, or different you are looking for to crack this problem?
Yeah. And definitely this is an area that's a lot of focus. So to your question about sort of a phrase, I would say it's almost having to deal with the new and deal with the old and accelerate the new, and they have to be in parallel, not sequential, right? So that's the challenge that we all have to work today. And I'm listening to Rajeev, Aref, and Suma in terms of some of the things that they grapple with. And it's very similar to what we are seeing too. And especially for us as a 135-year-old company. So we're kind of in between, Aref and Rajeev yourself, in terms of the age of a company. But some of the things that we are looking at, it has to be a journey, Sanjog, because it's not just about having a project and to get this done is never done. So as a team, we're working at different areas within our organization to rationalize our core platforms, whether it's in where we call our digital foundation, which is our networking space, the way we're looking at hosting in cloud, but also in core platform areas like supply chain, commercial, and data. And like I said, these are not projects per se. It's ongoing rationalization and modernization of what it takes us from now to the future state. And they include looking at our 63 ERP systems today and really looking at rationalizing that from not just a technology perspective, but I think Arif, you're spot on. There is a huge part around change management. How do we work with our business in terms of rationalizing the business process to live into the new world? And so that's, to me, is an ongoing space that we have to continue to grapple with. And reducing the number of systems is one thing, modernizing our core, and really finding ways to drive better resiliency, which I believe one of the core component of this webinar, right? And driving observability and automation, and the human factor cannot be ignored, because as we look at just the fact about technology transformation, a huge part is about the culture. As Suma said, it's also about the change management, about driving new ways of working, right, with our business teams and IT team as well.
So, Rowena, when we speak about rationalization, do you think we could get overzealous with the rationalization that we cut to the bones? Because even our business as it's going on, it's going to morph. Something which will say, oh, let's rationalize it. Let's kind of clean the house, right? And you clean the house way too much. And then you say, oh, I should have preserved that investment, or I could have tweaked it. You should not become a hoarder, but you should not become a minimalist in the world that we are living in either. So how do you kind of what's your philosophy? Or maybe it's not even a philosophy. It has to have some metrics, some methodical approach to have a method to the madness of rationalization here.
Absolutely. And it always starts with the business strategy, right? Where is the business going? And it always has to start with that. And how do we better serve our customers, our patients that we serve? So if you look at that as the two major spectrum in terms of where we're driving our modernization or rationalization effort, it always has to start from there. And you made a really good point. It's not just about everything that's old and legacy, you get rid of it. There are from just specific nuances, the way we are serving our customers. We don't want to mess with the success that we have today. So how do we bring the best of what we have and continue to live into the modern world with some of those? So that it is a process that we look at. And to your point around sort of some of the factors and metrics, business strategy, how do we ensure that we drive the right level of accountability with our business teams? What's the level of change and maturity they are today? Because it's not just an overnight change. How do we work with them, right, with their transformation? And I would say that this is more a journey than a sprint that we're looking to make it happen, and having really hardwired metrics at the end of the day to measure business outcomes, to measure the value realization of what we put in place together with the business.
Okay. So, Rajeev, I will just come to you in a second. So all the audience members, please feel free to jump in. This is supposed to be an interaction and a workshop, right? So if you have any challenges, raise your hand. I'll request you to unmute, and then you can talk about it. So please, raise your hands or ask questions as we go along. So Rajiv, when we come to you, you had a different flavor of the challenge Rowena mentioned. But then when you started working on it, are you stuck somewhere, which is where you need a solution, if you will?
Not really stuck. Let me backtrack a little bit and use two words that Rowena used. One is journey, and the second one is methodical, right? So we know that we need to modernize, and you have to look for opportunities. That's where you have to get creative. So one of the examples, we had the biggest ERP implementation that I've ever done in my career, and one of the largest projects Ryder has done. It was a 3-year project to completely revamp our our finance and HR systems at once. And our finance system was on a mainframe. Huge initiative. 3 years, it's live now, and it went well, thank God. And so while doing that, here's where, as a CIO, I always have to keep my mind at, is this an opportunity to modernize? What can I do to modernize some other things? How do we leverage this? Because it's a big spend. So one of the things that we did was we built a hub and spoke model. It's actually Ryder's data exchange in the cloud. And so what this did was our old ERP system on the mainframe talked to a whole bunch of other legacy systems. I didn't want to go modernize all that because that would be a 6-year project. So instead of doing that, we created a hub and spoke model in Azure that actually kept all the inputs and outputs of the legacy system as is. So what this enables us to do in future is slowly pick off each of those items, and it'll be plug and play. So that's the goal. So I think my point is that whenever there's an opportunity, we have to seize it. The challenge is, again, going back to convincing business that, hey, this is really important for you to do because there's future potential. And so how do you do that? So every application that you have that's remaining, you have to rationalize it, right? And it's not to minimize just every system, is to go through and say, what is the total cost of ownership for each of those applications? And what value is it bringing you? And what are the risks? So put those 3 things together and say, which one should be done first? And what is the cost? So I think it's not a single dimensional answer. It is multidimensional. And on top of that, if you put business strategy, as I think Rowena said, was it Suma that said it? The business strategy is critical. That drives everything else. But I think it has to be a methodical process that you have to keep in the back of your mind all the time. So the challenge is, yes, it's slow, because you have to look for opportunities rather than say, here's $100 million, go do it, right?
Okay, so Suma, when you work in your environment, it's like you're only invited into an organization when there is a trouble, and a big trouble, and an unknown trouble, right? I mean, isn't that the environment you guys always live in?
Yeah, it's pretty edge of the seat excitement on a daily basis. Yes.
Yeah, so it can be unnerving too at times, right? Like too much of excitement, right, on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
So when an organization which has to support, and you're supporting a bunch of different companies, and we're talking about efficiency and resilience. Imagine you had to go to Wall Street and say, I'm a business, and I'm saying for the IT department to say, I'm a business and I want to show that I'm going to be profitable, or I'm going to be providing growth, and I'm going to run it pretty cheap, or not cheap, basically run it at the lowest cost possible. How are you doing that for yourself, and in what way are your customers that you work with, they're able to do so that not only do they say, I run pretty lean, but also if I have to bounce back, I'm not going to make the company suffer because I cut too much or I'm spending too little. So it's a balancing act, but there has to be some way of saying this is the right balance for this kind of company. How do you tackle that?
Yep. That's a very good question. Again, for us being in the business of saving people's lives and helping organizations run faster, having that business continuity always in mind when organizations are going through those critical events, if you will, right? And also, I mentioned critical events, but we are also responsible for the COVID vaccine rollouts, the notifications around that, right? So we are in very life-saving things in that sense. So it's 24/7. We need to be always on, and I think using digital strategies, right? Like the cloud, making sure that we have enough auto scaling built in. We have enough storage and all of those things, and the business continuity frameworks established within our technology stacks is the way we respond quickly to these events at any given place. And it's 24/7. And because it's global, right, there's not a real downtime, if you will, right? So the fact that I'm in charge of the operations, it's again my sacred duty, if you will, to ensure that business continuity is always first. And we are always looking at ways to minimize the cost, and also making sure that our messages during these critical events are delivered on time in a most reliable fashion, right? So having that operational resilience thread built throughout our systems is very critical, and we have the right focus on that. I know Rajiv and I've mentioned not exactly to the point of what we do at Everbridge, but I was the state CIO for the state of Colorado a couple of jobs earlier. And talk about transformation, talk about culture. These are employees that are tied to their mainframes. And we had to move them to the cloud or anything, and talk about culture. There was protests in front of my office because we wanted to move away from mainframe to the cloud. Because they're so used to the green screens and they have these keystrokes figured out and they don't want to change. These are the DMV clerks, and we know all the jokes about the DMV and all of that, it being slow. So the things that resonated a lot with my very respected panelists is that culture and the transformation is not about technology, right? We have the technology established. How do you get these employees that have been at the public sector for such a long time? And again, they're there for the right reasons, but they don't understand the cloud. And for us to go to the joint budget committee, joint technology committee, and ask for the cloud investment was like pulling teeth, right? Because they're like, Mrs. Nallapati, you're making this up. There's no such thing called the cloud. And so I'm like, actually there is. So that was very interesting. So getting people along for the ride, making sure that they understand the value of these digital tools, I think is very critical. And Everbridge, because we are not as a legacy, we're a 20-year-old system, right? So we've been able to incorporate some of these strategies, and the leaders that have gone through the worms in the back, right? Like all of us on this panel, bringing them to the table has helped a lot in terms of, bending the curve and leveraging the latest and the greatest technology, whether it's AI, machine learning, data pipelines, as well as being able to use those technologies to the fullest because lives are dependent on it. I know, Rowena, with your, sector, which is healthcare, you are on 24/7. And same thing with supply chain and all of that, right? And all the things that are the nuanced versions of what we need to do to keep our business continuously running is all about leadership and all about thinking forward, looking beyond the just now, and making our people understand the value of why we are investing in these, and having the buy-in very early on is the key to success. And it's a constant game.
Arif, in your case, I cannot forget that whole scenario that towards the end you mentioned where the people are just brought in the middle when there's pandemic, not the best time for somebody to be oriented, and only to know they're coming when you are running a bunch of different projects. And you mentioned it's change management. And Suma also mentioned culture.
Yeah.
So is it still always to be considered as a fuzzy science, if you will, fuzzy art or a science for you to be able to do this?
No, I think this is a science for sure, and people really need to get their heads around that because of the fact that there are evidences that you can actually do these types of activities even during pandemic, even with new employees joining. You can actually do this, and you can actually deliver on these missions and actually measure to ensure that you are demonstrating a whole lot of progress here. The couple things that I have kind of learned in this process is that there's a need for empathy and there's a need for executive resolve in these types of projects and the large scale of activities that are required to really kind of reach a successful end game. And the product builder in me says, hey, you do a lot of agile and safety practices, and you want to become efficient with everything that you do. But agile also, the product builder says, requires certain other roles, such as a product manager, right? Such as a product owner, right? Because if you want to treat all of your projects like an agile project, then you better have spent the time and really gotten yourself the appropriate product management skills and the appropriate product owner skills so that they can actually define what are these big changes that you want to make in your back office during your modernization, right? Because like I said, it's not about the technologies, it's about really process reengineering and really kind of basically shifting from a older system to a newer technology, be it SaaS or something that you built yourself or you bought, right? And integrate. So if you're taking on a big mission like that, if it's important enough for your company and your businesses to invest in a big mission like this, then it's important enough to have somebody who is a product champion for this activity. And if there's no product champion, it's almost guaranteed that many of these projects will end up failing for these areas, right? So we focus specifically on ensuring that we have product champions, product managers for each one of these critical topics who can actually kind of define a roadmap and help the rest of the agile team and the safe practice to essentially implement this roadmap. But the empathy is important, right? You have, 2,000 new people that showed up during the pandemic, and you have to take the time to essentially make sure that the relevant people are updated on where you're headed with your strategy, and keep repeating it. Make sure that you listen to them. Make sure that you understand what their concerns are. Are they coming up the ramp fast enough? What else do they need to really kind of do their job better and stuff like that? And then executive resolve, which I mentioned, that you have to really be extra special attention, right? Executives really need to provide extra special attention these days on these big projects that are going on right now in the current mode of operation, to ensure that these projects are nurtured properly and they're taken care of and they are executing well, and continuously measure and improve the process. Because like I said, it's not so much about the technology. It's really a huge amount of process reengineering that's required in these projects where change management is always difficult, right? And when you combine change management with process reengineering activities, it takes quite a bit of an effort to get things organized. And we pay a lot of attention to those details in this process.
Yeah. Hey, Sanjog, may I just jump in on
Yes,
that? And I
please.
think that's a really relevant point in terms of change management. I also, I just want to add to the point that when you have like a crisis happen, so one of the things I've seen with the pandemic happened, and for us in J&J having to enable like 135,000 employees to work remotely suddenly overnight, you just see that sense of purpose of people coming together to do that for the enabling part of it, but also people coming together very quickly to form a crisis management team to make sure that, hey, we've got to be able to continue to deliver our products to our patients. Our supply chain got to be running super well. We've got to be responsive to the business requirements. That part of it, having that common purpose, is another element I saw in terms of getting people together to drive to a common outcome. So really good point, Aref. And I love the point about empathy too, because it's also about keeping employees safe during this point in time and making sure that we allow for that opportunity for them to provide feedback, that experience they may have, whether they are onboarding new employees or, continuing with their day-to-day job and continue to get the business running. So just want to add that point.
One thing which I want to build on what Arif you mentioned, you said every initiative which is worth working on should have a champion, right?
That's right.
So that's great. I mean, of course, I would love to see that happen. But there are a lot of initiatives that we are picking up right now, which I would not say is a knee-jerk reaction. We still want to plan it, but they are also moving into the unknown. How would you get someone from a journey to say, okay, get involved, to take, active participation, to becoming a champion, right? It doesn't happen overnight for somebody to become a champion.
Yeah.
So this is a question to all of you. Is there some, you take them to a bar and get them to drink and then they become a champion, or
No,
what do you do?
I think I mentioned, right? I mentioned executive resolve is required here, right? You need to kind of keep back going to, we are building this product or we're not building this product, right? If we are seriously building this product, we really need to make sure that every component of this product has got a champion, so that they can actually say that, well, build it like this, in this color, in that shape, in this size, right? And if they're not really specifying this, all of a sudden you'll end up with a product that nobody needs and nobody can use, and they have not participated in the definition of the process, re-engineering of this process, and you end up with a end product that's really not useful for too many people, right? And therefore they don't end up using, right? And you end up wasting a lot of time, a lot of money, extremely inefficient, and it defeats the entire purpose. This is why I said it is a science, right? The science says that if you're agile, you're practicing this, there's a need for a product manager, and you have to ensure that core team, product manager, architect, quality assurance person, head of development, and project program management is present as a part of this core team, so that you can actually start the core team activity to ensure that the stakeholders are really proactively supporting the definition of the outcome, the requirements, roadmap participation. And once you nail this, I think from there, it is just kind of basically science of agile, right? And you can deliver it, right? So, but you have to get it organized properly, and you have to ensure that there's executive resolve supporting this across the business, and you continuously basically need to synchronize and follow through and measure the progress and help the teams to come along on whatever it is that they need to get the job done.
So Suma, I want to, go ahead, Rajeev. I'll then ask
jumping on what I already said. The critical things, and I talked about the total cost of ownership as well. That product manager is critical, and I also find that the product manager being in the business is equally important. One of the mistakes we made was, early on, I try to talk through the whole organizational structure and how a product team should be, and getting a C player that has no idea of how to manage a product was hard. So completely, I think the product manager has to understand the business, have to understand what managing a product is, and have that collaborative spirit between IT and the business to drive some of these things. This, I think, is critical.
And understand the requirement of the end user.
Absolutely.
Right.
From building things that no one's going to use, as you said. Right. That's critical.
And some engineers have the tendency to just keep building without looking at why we are building, on what value it's serving, right? So we need to get that balance between engineering and business outcomes.
Right.
Yeah. And I think test and learn is really important too. So you can show early signs of successes, and that, to your point, sort of drive further affirmation about what this brings. So I think that's really important. But I really echo the point about having a very strong product manager. The business, from the business, is super critical to, in fact, a lot of the programs that we've seen as well, not just product manager, but the strong support and sponsorship and championship that we need.
That's right.
And the other piece that's, I think, is sort of missing is that, and this can be, interspersed in every part of the conversation, is automation, right? I think we talked about the business process reengineering. I'm a huge believer in that. Before you even start a project, look at your as is and to be, right? And then what parts of it can you automate? And that's critical. So I stood up a complete automation group, not in IT, in the business. It's central. And so they're looking across the board, and my team supports them from a technology standpoint. And so that ties in with the whole process reengineering piece too. And I want to create that group at the corporate level as well, not in IT. So a lot of good points that you brought up.
So Suma, I remember you mentioned that you had the people given a cool looking application, and since we're so used to the green screen, it was tough to get them adopted. So I wanted to take the science part of it, Arif, you mentioned, and even Rowena and Rajeev, you mentioned. And I would say that, okay, you build it and you try to do all the right things, but eventually the adoption could be dependent on those very people. So even if you say, I'm going to take you along, but there's a lot of inertia. And then they are in this, if I were to still say pandemic to some extent has settled down, but you still have people who have got their own issues, if you will, they are dealing with. They don't want to unnecessarily rock the boat on the work front. So what do you do differently than you put an org structure in place, you put the process in place for these people, even if you're empathetic? They say, okay, great, I love you because you're empathetic, but I don't want to adopt your application that you built. Right? That can happen, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, it can happen. And I think it's very, very important to speak their language and meet them where they are, right? If you try to shove this change management down their throats, it's going to backfire big time. So I think you do it with empathy, but you do it with a lot of understanding and being in their shoes on why they're resisting the change, right? So we created a lot of customer advisory groups. I went and sat in the DMV myself and showed them, instead of the green screen, which is taking you 7 minutes, right? And I think Rajiv had a similar transaction where we cut down on the times and showed them the value in that sense where, this business process reengineering and this speaking that language, right? I'm not speaking about the cloud and automation and all of them to them, but speaking in their language on how it's going to cut down transaction times. The wait times at the DMV will be reduced by 20%. Starting with that kind of business language and sitting down with them and doing the advisory groups very early on and bringing them along the journey and also taking their feedback along the way, right? We are not those extremely smart people we think we are because they have like 30-year-old knowledge of the system. So taking their inputs along the way, showing them how we're incorporating their feedback into our design thinking, into our process journeys, into our customer journeys was very helpful. And you build it in a very authentic way, right? You can't fake this. And I truly believe in a very authentic leadership where we stand for what's right and also doing the balance, the delicate dance between what they want versus what you want to achieve and meeting halfway.
So we spoke about projects to some extent or initiatives, which you could call them as a start and an end, right? That is also one aspect of what you do in IT and that you need for efficiency gain as well as resiliency. That's understandable. But then when it comes to really running the operations and the way you're running, you're taking care of operations, you're running projects, you're dealing with people, you're hiring and firing people, you got all of that going on. Should there be some way of measuring things on a consistent basis? And for that, should there be some benchmarks and metrics that should be established, which we use as a way for us to say, hey, I'm running 100 miles an hour. Even a 1 degree difference would take me off track. Am I going in the right direction? And when I keep the efficiency and resiliency of IT in place or take that as a context, what benchmarks or metrics an organization should put in place so that you're watching it like a hawk and everything that you do, people, process, technology, applications, culture, leadership, policies, processes, politics, you name it, right? So that you stay on track and you've got something that you're aspiring for. Are there any benchmarks and metrics that you guys are using to stay on course?
There are lots of things that are available, lots of tools, lots of capabilities to do this. Of course, you have a way of monitoring the size of the organization, the scale of the organization, the budgets, your burn rate of the activities. You have access to the agile metrics, and you understand how the product development process is making progress. If you go to the other side of the IT, where you're talking about infrastructure and desktops, right? You kind of measure things by number of tickets and activities. But one way that we are actually kind of doing and kind of part of the more of the modern product development process is that we are using a tool and capability called Flow Metrics. And Flow Metrics is an amazing capability. there are many other things out there. And Flowmetrics is an amazing capability that basically teaches and supports all the agile teams to determine their own productivity from sprint to sprint. And you know, nobody knows what they don't know, right? If people don't understand the productivity of their overall team, the best thing that they can do is to have a capability to measure what is the productivity, how are we doing, can we actually do things better, can we change some setup of our team, can we add some process to our product development, can we have more interaction with our product managers, can we add a few more resources to ensure that our productivity actually increases here. And it's one thing for me to really kind of monitor these things. It's a completely different thing for the teams to monitor this themselves, right? Because they're the ones that, regardless of whatever I say, they're the ones that are going to need help to really kind of understand where they are and how they can improve themselves. And you'd be surprised how people actually start adopting these things, right? When they see that, oh, okay, well, now I see what's going on, right? In this team, if we had one more member added to this team, we could really kind of move some mountains by really kind of assigning this, prioritizing this, reprioritizing, and we can move some mountains here if we did this, right? And that productivity, understanding of the productivity of each one of these agile teams is important. Not that you want to basically have, okay, well, how's this team doing as compared to that team? Yeah, you can't help it because the data is available and you do that. But that comparison is a bit meaningless because that agile team is that agile team, right? They need to kind of learn how to become productive and go forward. So Flowmetrics is a very, very modern way of really enabling the agile team productivity progress there.
I think building in that observability and telemetry within the product suite, I think is pretty significant.
So my question regarding the resilience side of the business, right? So yes, you can build effectiveness metrics and efficiency metrics, etc. But resilience is about the delay and the outages. So not every delay and every outage is based on your past knowledge base that you've created, right? That's the fun part of every time an outage happens or a major event happens in your case. You might end up scratching your head to say, where did this come from, which did not have a precedence. And that's what typically happens. And not every part of our business, while we talk about business continuity, disaster recovery, pull the plug test and all that, but you cannot have pull the plug test for all types of issues that we are going to face or we are likely to face given the volatility that we are seeing. So have you seen companies do something to prepare to minimize the downtime or outages, and that way they can really consciously working towards this resilience mantra?
Yep. No, we call at Everbridge this new program that we've initiated where like a lot of Fortune 500 companies are actually taking advantage of that. And it's called Best in Enterprise Class Resilience. And it's actually a badge that companies get when they implement it. And it's a framework. It's all these tenets that make up the enterprise resilience, right? Like in terms of your cybersecurity posture, in terms of business continuity, resilience, in terms of how quickly things are going to happen, right? We can't prevent it. But how quickly can you respond and how quickly can you bring your operations back in place? So this framework, I would love for all the team members here to look at it and look at this enterprise class resilience certification, Best in Enterprise Resilience. Dow Jones and a few other companies have already taken advantage of it and are using it within their framework because it's hard to quantify it all as an organization. We all have our day jobs, but then there's all these hackers and everybody else that have a lot more flexibility in terms of how they get to our systems and things like that. So we've actually created this program for enterprises so that they go with a very established framework in terms of that resilience. And Everbridge is leading that space, and it's called Best in Enterprise Resilience Indexing.
Yeah, definitely take a look at that. I think one of the other things that we found to your point about just resiliency is Similar to what Rajeev mentioned about automation, I think we've taken a step around just driving intelligent automation, because one of the things we have found is that if you look at sort of what contributes to a lot of the issues that we have today, human errors are still number one. Right, root cause for a lot of SEP 1 incidences around, well, at least at Johnson Johnson. I mean, we have like 5,000 applications across our ecosystem, and our interoperability is very complex. So I think that's one area. And we've found that a lot of manual steps are required to do that. Now, when we put in place an automation process, an intelligent automation, whereby we incorporate some of the artificial intelligence and machine learning around predicting some of these root causes, we actually saw significant reduction in human errors because we are automating those processes, and also provides us Sanjog, with that increased visibility and control. So that's a space which we found to be helpful in our resiliency. And we've seen our, in fact, number of incidents gone down by like 50% year on year, just because of the fact that we are automating our processes. We are creating opportunities for self-healing, just intensity around monitoring. And I think as we talk about metrics and measurement, it's okay to have so much metrics and measurement, but how do we drive the insights from those to be able to then support things and actions that we got to be doing? I think that to me is a key element we got to be looking at.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned, the automation aspect, but then also there's that human aspect where we can take that human power and apply it on top of all that intelligence and create that bionic company, right? Where we use that superhuman abilities to orchestrate even more of value for our customers when we have the machines and the humans come together, and you take away the human error aspect, but put them on the more intelligent workflows and things like that can help us be much more resilient.
Yeah, spot on.
So,
There's some basic practices here also that are important to pay attention to. I see that Suma has on her background the Global Operations Center, right? Such things are necessary to increase the observability of the applications that are running and are in front of the customers, and so that you can actually monitor how the applications are doing and really understand what is their status there, right? Especially in shops where there's a lot of legacy. Also, there are, in my opinion, product guy again, that there's some really bad practices where a group built the application, but another group is maintaining the application, and that. I don't like that. That's a no-no in my science, right? Because of the fact that if you're building it, you're responsible for it, right? And you can't really kind of throw it over the wall to somebody else to go fix something that you have built that they don't know anything about, right? And you're responsible for it. If you do a good job in building it, great. You don't get the wake-up calls. If you don't, then you end up getting the wake-up call, and you learn that in that process, and you learn that, okay, well, I better build it correctly for the next time so that I don't get the call, somebody else gets the call, right? And trying to basically throw it over the wall to a maintenance group is a bad part of a practice in the science here.
And this is my favorite strain, Aref. I'm so glad you noticed that. But this is monitored 24/7 by our
I
team.
have one of those, so I can notice it.
I like that.
okay, so we will close it, but then you know what? Nothing can be completely done without the right kind of a leadership mindset, the muscle that you got to have, right, in your respective. I always like to ask this question. So if there was one thing that you would fix in yourself as an individual, don't think IT, don't think your respective companies, you. What would that you would fix in you so that you are best positioned to help your organization achieve the most efficient and the most resilient business of IT? It can be 10 words or less for that matter, just to make it simple.
So, or less. I need to be more patient.
Okay. And you should not repeat, by the way. Nobody too when can I say, oh, I like that too, right? So what else? Suma or Rowena or Rajeev, take it.
I would say I want to be more business focused and less technical. Constantly fine tuning my business abilities is going to be helpful for me as a leader. And I need to learn patience too. If I'm a pastry chef, everything is not going to be.
I like that you bring that down.
I am impatient.
All right.
Definitely number one. I think I wish I had more time, and I wish there's a digital twin somewhere that can help do so many things at the same time.
So you are saying that you would like to get things done yesterday, but is there something that you're trying to fix in yourself to say, okay, Rowena will be a better leader tomorrow if I do this?
I think, like I said, prioritization time, right? And same as Aref and Suma, I need more patience as well.
All right, good. So Rajeev?
I wish I had a crystal ball. So what I think, again, since I can't repeat everything, it all resonates with me. Just to understand that, things will seek its own level, right? Sometimes you just have to step away, because when we all are, right? We're all problem solvers. When there's a problem, you want to just dive in and fix it. That way you can check the box and get out, right? Go on to the next thing. So sometimes just let it go. Just sit back and really observe, and then come back at it from a different angle. Like when we talk about metrics, everything that you guys said is true, but I'm using metrics to drive energy in the team. It's on a dashboard. It's on everyone's phones, and we are actually measured by it, and they get paid by it too. So everyone's in on it. So I'm looking at the human element too. And I wouldn't have gotten there with that idea if I just started to solve the issue with metrics. So I need to learn. I'm very bad. I just want to go fix everything and just move on. So I'm a work in progress. What can I say?
All right. So what a great conversation today. Thank you, all of you. Rowena Yeo, Rajeev Ravindran, Suma Nallapati, and Aref Matin. Thanks so much again. And all our attendees who took the time to participate. And thank you so much, Everbridge, for being our sponsor. Thanks so much. And we should keep in touch and keep doing a good work. Thanks so much. And for all the attendees.
Thank you so much for your time.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care now. Bye-bye.